Gray, she will rise again. Currently, she is in the white hot room of the Phoenix. Well, she will rise again, most deaf. Next, we have Warren Worthington III.
He's sad.
He's sad. As for the comic book readers, have any of you read the Remender run of Uncanny X-Force? Yes, no, maybe so? No, okay. So, X-Force is a sub-team of the X-Men that basically does the X-Men's dirty work, founded by Scott Summers.
Awesome.
Yeah. He, at one point, kind of mentally dies, like his psyche dies, and his older version in the comics, at the moment, believes that he's an actual angel. He also has a very long history with Apocalypse. He is well known for being one of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and his psyche also died as a result of what happens in Uncanny X-Force. Uncanny X-Force is my favorite title of all time, so I'm not going to get into details because I will cry. So here we go. Now we have Dr. Hank McCoy, who I also have mixed feelings about. He's very blue, but he's not always very blue. Hank McCoy was actually had a secondary, not a sexual mutation. Oh my goodness, Hank McCoy is a furry. Hank McCoy is literally his own persona.
He went too far.
He went too far. The reason why Hank is blue is because he tested on himself. And if I remember correctly, he is the 4th member to join the X-Men of the original 5. Oh, he's a founding, but the order that joined was Scott, Bobby, Jean, Hank, Warren. But they're all founding members, yes. He currently is a professor at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. That also goes for, oh, we have Illyana. Whoops, sorry, Illyana's not a founding member, but she's super, super important to the comics at the moment. She is the sister of Colossus, big metal man. Colossus also kind of has a history of being in and out of the X-Men for different reasons, some psychological, some not. She is the sorceress of Limbo. She became the Sorceress of Limbo at about 15. Her main abilities is that she has a soul sword, which is kind of forged from a piece of her soul ripped from her body, and she teleports on discs. So she uses Limbo to teleport basically anywhere. That is some anime shit, you're right. But she was on the roster for Uncanny X-Men in Marvel now, so super important. There you go, Bobby Drake. Bobby Drake is probably my favorite X-Men because I've got bad taste.
You got that right.
Ouch!
Wow.
That stinks. He is currently a math teacher at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning, and he was the 2nd member to join the X-Men of the original 5. He is an Omega level mutant. He has complete control over his cryokinesis and cryogenesis, which is basically a fancy word for he make ice. He makes slushies. It's his, well, yeah. But he's currently on the roster for Wolverine and the X-Men. But hopefully if we get to the end of the panel, I can explain what's going on with Secret Wars, because I'll give you this information, and it might matter a little bit, and it might not, because everything is fucked. Next we have Ms. Ororo Munroe, or Storm. She is the current headmistress of the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. She is
Literal goddess.
a literal goddess.
Says right
Yeah, she was the queen of Wakanda, and that is in Kenya. She has Omega level control over weather. That's what atmokinesis means. She also has a bond to the earth. So if bad things happen to the earth,
She's Mother Nature.
she knows what's going on. She's basically Mother Nature. And she's basically my wife.
Oh, okay then.
Oh my god, my wife.
Next we have Kitty. Kitty is she is a cinnamon roll. She's too good to pure for this earth. She was the former headmistress before Aurora took over. She's currently with the Uncanny X-Men, and I'll be able to explain what the fuck is going on with the X-Men roster once we explain Avengers vs. X-Men, because not only do we have the adult versions of the original 5, but we also have the 16-year-old teenage versions coexisting in the same universe. And that's all thanks to Dr. McCoy. Kitty's an alpha level mutant, and her mutation is phasing. And a lot of people think that that's a super, super lame power, but Kitty literally can rip people's hearts out of their chest, and she phased a bullet through the earth. So, like, we're talking a really, really big bullet, like that cartoony bullet in, like, Super Mario, except it, like, was, like, the size of New York. Pretty legit. Yeah. Her power is definitely super, super underrated, IMO. Now we have Emma Frost.
Yes! Licensed sex therapist, my job.
Well, in the older comics, there is like a love triangle arc between Jean, Scott, and Emma. Love triangles. Emma's first entrance as a character was actually as a villain.
White Queen.
The White Queen, that's right, of the Hellfire Club. And her ability is actually really, really dope. She's an Omega level telepath, and she can transform her body into an organic diamond form. However, when she becomes diamond, she loses her empathy as well as use of her telepathy. She's kind of a bitch, but I love her. She's one of those characters. The thing about Emma Frost, you either love her or you hate her. And I love her. But she is also on the Uncanny roster, and especially after Jean's passing, she's had a very pivotal role in the newer X-Men comics. And now it's time to talk about the Phoenix. All right, so the Phoenix is a rude cosmic bird with no manners. What else is there to say? The Phoenix is a celestial cosmic force that typically, well, really only bonds with mutants. And when bonded with, they are basically the most powerful thing, like, ever. Not kidding. As we, like, can see here, like, the Phoenix is essentially immortal. And it has taken several hosts throughout the years. So if we're going to start from left to right, first we have Namor in the Phoenix 5, Emma Frost is the Phoenix, Rachel Summers is the Phoenix, Scott Summers is the Phoenix, Jean Grey Summers is the Dark Phoenix, Charles Xavier is Phoenix, Quentin Quire, who is the next host of the Phoenix, whoops, did I say Rachel Summers? Yeah, that was Rachel Summers. Hope Summers, bottom middle is Phoenix, and Madeline Pryor is Phoenix. Quite a few Phoenixes.
You hated that.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. So, Quentin Quire, kind of an important character because he currently in the comics is bonded to the Phoenix Egg, so he's going to be the next Phoenix. Unfortunately, he's a 17-year-old little shit. He's terrible. He's a terrible person. He's got a terrible haircut too. He has had a history of starting riots at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. He has killed people before, and for a while he was really known as being a sociopath. But right now, more than anything, he's kind of like a bratty hero.
Yay.
Good job, Scott.
Yeah, that was thanks to Scott. Scott was like, hey, we need to rehabilitate him and stuff like that. And now we have the time-displaced original 5. They are currently in the mainstream Marvel Universe, currently with their adult counterparts, you know, the ones who are alive. Sorry, Jean. And I'll explain while they're here after we explain the events of Avengers vs. X-Men. Yeah. So now we have the Guardians of the Galaxy. Last time, I don't know if anyone came to our panel last time, I had a really, really abridged version, but the characters are really, really growing since the popularity of the movie, so I thought I would give them expanded profiles too. First we have Peter Quill, who is Star-Lord. His backstory in the movie is only a little on par with it. His father, I guess if you don't want to know, I guess you can plug your ears, is a Spartan king. and he's half Spartoid, so that's cool. His mother, I mean, as far as the actual backstory goes for him, his mother did die at a young age, but throughout his life he had like different contacts, like alien contact on Earth because people wanted to kill him. Guess that is what happens when you're a prince. He also kind of takes Star-Lord as almost like it's something that he definitely goes by, but not only does nobody know that he's like what Star-Lord is or who the Guardians of the Galaxy are, because I mean, let's be honest, the universe is big. He kind of takes that as almost like Star-Lord is a very generic term in space. It's basically like another word for police officer. But he was in training at one point to become a Star-Lord, which is like a space police officer. But a pal of his instead got it, so he got pissed and he took Star-Lord as his alias. It's kind of lame to basically have a alias that is like space police officer. But that's just me, not to spill any tea. Oh, it's 1:30. God is good on this day. So next we have Rocket Raccoon. His alias is Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon comes from a planet in which animals have been augmented and have formed kind of like a humanoid society alongside humanoid plants. And that is how Rocket and Groot meet. He joined, I think he's one of the first to join the Guardians of the Galaxy, if I'm correct, along with Groot. And that leaves Gamora as like the last one too. But hopefully in the second movie we'll touch more upon their backstories. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, I started reading Guardians of the Galaxy last week. So I was super surprised to not only find out that Groot is scary as fuck, but also they're kind of intertwined backstories together. He's Groot. He comes from the same planet that Rocket Raccoon came from, and I also found out that he is incredibly smart. However, being only able to say I am Groot is kind of like a big weakness if you're a genius. Next we have Gamora, who has a very, very long name.
I like it.
Green assassin.
Wait, this one?
Green assassin.
Basically the speed. It's very transformative.
Okay, early in the comics, Groot is seen speaking, but I think in general that's been retconned. As all things are in Marvel. If they can't be explained, they never happened. That also goes with Falcon. There is a chance Captain America, could be a mutant. But that was retconned because they were like, oh, that was a Sentinel issue, blah blah blah. But Charles Xavier was like, I think he's a mutant. It was, I think.
Mess it up, Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that kind of makes sense considering his telepathic link with birds.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that the movie, the MCU Guardians of the Galaxy, does a pretty decent job at her backstory. And yeah, she is great. What's up? Do you have a hand?
Oh no, I was praising Gamora.
Praise the sun.
She's my doll.
Next, we're talking about House of M, which is what I've been talking about, like, kind of throughout this entire panel.
What are you talking about?
The door's right there. House of M.
Talk about Ben Affleck.
House of M is a 5-issue run that started in 2005, and it kind of shaped a lot of the titles for the X-Men afterwards. Essentially, at the opening of this comic, Wanda Maximoff is on the verge of a mental breakdown, and her powers are starting to crap out. Upon discovering this, her brother, Pietro, decides to take her to Genosha, of all places. And Genosha, which we will get to, is basically an island that used to be a safe haven for mutants. It was basically an island of all mutants, but then there was a Sentinel attack, everyone died. But the Avengers weren't there for it.
Oh, it's slave island.
Well, Genosha is used as a slave island I know in Axis.
Oh, wait.
Axis? Yeah.
Okay.
So, faced with this problem, the Avengers and the X-Men get together to see what they should do on it. The Avengers' first idea is, we gotta kill her. Because
Put her down.
I mean, to be honest, that's a pretty foolproof plan. The X-Men are like, no, let's wait on this. This is our problem. And then the Avengers are like, no, it's not. Right.
World problem. Everyone problem.
So they go to Genosha, and Magneto comes in contact with his son and daughter. And whoops, we'll get to Schism. There is discourse, so there's quite a bit of arguing, and suddenly, this is after issue 2, they are all, sorry, my phone rang. They all wake up in a completely different universe. It is found out that it is a pocket universe that Wanda Maximoff created, in which mutants are superior to humans, and this is called the big supreme kind of bureaucracy leader is called the House of Magnus. The supreme leader is Eric Lehnsherr, Magneto. I believe Scott and Emma are the first to realize that they're in a pocket universe, and then they all kind of just track each other down, somehow in the course of one day. I'm surprised how they could do that.
Comic books.
Comic books. Things don't have to make sense. Logic never applies.
Like how Superman can hear in the middle in deep space.
Incredibly. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, like, you could also argue because he has alien physiology, but that's DC, and we're not going to talk about DC because this is a Marvel panel. So they all go to the House of M, after they all are regrouped, and they try to confront Wanda on it. Like, Wanda, you need to get your shit together. And she instead turns to Magneto, and she says, I gave you a universe that you always wanted, Dad, but this has always been the problem with you. Magneto has a history of putting his beliefs before his family, or anybody else he's ever really cared about in general. So then she casts a spell. She casts a spell, and it's no more mutants. So everybody's transported back to 616, but mutants begin losing their powers everywhere. And there's no more mutants showing up on Cerebro. God dang it. Oh, okay. Now we get to go to Schism. From 2005 to 2012, the X-Men comics were all about rebirth, like Maw extinction. So it was basically a frantic search for the X-Men to find a way to have a rebirth of mutants. And we have Schism, which is kind of a big event in Marvel now for the X-Men because it splits the team into two. Scott's team and Logan's team. It's basically 5 issues of fighting and hurting each other a lot. Scott and Logan have a very historic schism. Like this one. And what's even worse is in the meantime that they're fighting each other on Utopia, these Sentinels show up. And Logan thinks it's a good idea to blow up Utopia. You know, he's an Avenger, so it makes sense. And Scott says, well, we've got students here. We can make them fight. And then Logan's like, Scott, they're 13. And he's like, I know. However, it's kind of hypocritical because in the comics, Scott is kind of reprimanded for using children as weapons when Logan does the same thing as headmaster of the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. Just saying. But after that, the team splits into 2. Scott kind of taking over the actual field mission X-Men stuff, and Logan taking over the school. Now we have the time to talk about the mutant struggle. The mutant struggle.
Keep watching and laughing.
The mutant struggle is essentially discrimination. Think LGBT discrimination except to an extreme. because the gays can't shoot lasers out of their eyes.
Yes, we can.
One back.
And that's our
Everybody's eyes, everybody's eyes start lighting up. It is basically discrimination, attempts at genocide, and the fight for equality. That's the mutant struggle. Now we have the Civil War, which, who's all pumped for the Civil War movie coming up?
Well, minus eight, no, anything if it has four, though, that's a shame.
I don't want Ant-Man
Yeah.
in it.
I could talk about why I don't like Ant-Man, but I'm not going to do it at the panel because people love Ant-Man.
No, Ant-Man's
Talk
weird.
about it. Talk about it later.
Scotland's fine. There's an asshole.
How about you give us about 2 minutes of your opinion on that?
It's not good. Hang on, what time?
2 minutes will turn to 2 hours.
How about
trust
30
me.
seconds?
Go.
Oh, 30 seconds.
Go.
Hank Pym is historically known for abusing his wife, and that's my biggest issue with him. 10 seconds. There we go.
New record.
He also made an evil killing robot. Other than that, I'm sure he's peachy. We have 15 minutes, so let's try to zoom through events and hopefully get to some bad guys. The Civil War is essentially over an issue in which Iron Man wanted to propose this thing called the Superhero Registration Act, in which all vigilantes had to register themselves as vigilantes. That means characters such as Spider-Man and Daredevil, who has a terribly held secret identity, would have to give their information, give their identity to the government. Iron Man's like, great idea. Everybody knows I'm Tony Stark. No big deal, right? Yeah. And Cap's like, no, we have vigilantism for a reason, and that's for anonymity, along with justice. And Spider-Man is kind of like the child going through the divorce. He is very much a pivotal character, as he's supposed to be seen as kind of the outside guy. He and Iron Man are super tight for a while, but given that identity things, plus at one point Iron Man almost tries to kill him, I would be kind of weary of him too. Cap also dies at the end of the Civil War, but just thought I'd let you know now. Cry out your tears now. Yeah. So that's the essential conflict of the Civil War. Now we have Avengers vs. X-Men, which I've been waiting to talk about, and we're probably not going to get through it. So, the Phoenix is coming back to Earth, and Scott's like, holy shit! Rebirth! Mutants, finally! We've been doing this for like 6 years now! We've been looking for a rebirth for mutants. And that's what the Phoenix is going to do. But the Phoenix has a history of swallowing stars and planets and universes and stuff like that and killing billions of people. Bad things.
Well played, man.
So, Captain America's like, hey, don't let Hope Summers bond with the Phoenix. Hope Summers is supposed to become the host of the Phoenix at the time of Avengers vs. X-Men for the sake of a mutant rebirth. Her origin is kind of tied in with Cable, so Scott is kind of like a step-grandfather. It's really weird, because Cable's also this really grown old man, and that's because he's a time traveler. But her origin falls in with Cable's. So Scott's like, okay, no, that's not happening. So the Avengers show up on Utopia, and Scott's like, what the fuck are you guys doing at my house? And he's like, you're not going to let the Phoenix bond. Like, if the Phoenix touches Earth, it could swallow it. And Scott's like, no, it's going to bond with Hope, and we're going to have a mutant rebirth. So Iron Man's idea is, let's blow up the Phoenix.
Explosions!
The Avengers go straight to killing and destroying, if you have noticed.